Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Film Buds podcast. This is our 29th bonus episode, and my name is Henry. This time around, I'm going to be talking about the DC Extended Universe, the cinematic universe, which we already did a few years ago, did the first part from Man of Steel through the first Shazam. And now I'm going to be talking about Birds of Prey through The Flash. So Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 1984, Zack Snyder's Justice League, The Suicide Squad, Black Adam, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and then ending with The Flash. So yeah, it should be a great time. Thank you so much for listening, for downloading, and if you did donate or if you're subscribed, thank you very much. And if you are not subscribed yet, I hope you do so soon. I'll say this, if I had to choose, I'm a DC fan over Marvel. I do love Marvel, and I think they have a more consistent track record. But when it comes to DC, there's just something about DC that I just relate to more. Maybe the characters feel more grounded, the villains are better, the worlds feel more real for the most part, not always, but if I had to pick anyone, it would be the Batman and the Joker. I don't love any superhero character more than the Batman, and I don't love any other villain in the comic book world more than the Joker. And so I'll always watch, any Batman movie, really any DC movie, even if it's a train wreck. Even if I don't love every DC movie, and I will completely agree that they are inconsistent, whereas Marvel, they're much more consistent and they don't have many huge flops, whereas DC does. But with DC, I feel like when they get it right, they really get it right. For example, Matt Reeves is the Batman, which I'm hoping to do a Dark Knight trilogy and with a bonus review of the Batman coming soon on another bonus show. But a movie like that, I think Birds of Prey, we'll get to it very soon. The Dark Knight trilogy, Wonder Woman, I think when they get it right, they really get it right. And for me, they typically surpass a lot of Marvel's better films. I don't know if that's a hot take. We'll get into it. And then Harley Quinn is another favorite character. I would happily take Batman, Joker, and Harley Quinn over pretty much any Marvel character, both just by themselves, but also in the context of, them as a group. I think they're amazing when they bounce off of each other, and by far the most interesting characters in comic books and movies, especially. All right, let's get to the first film. Let's get into it. Let's get to Birds of Prey, also originally titled Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, which is a awesome title. I love it. I'm kind of pissed that they changed it for, marketing reasons. Came out in 2020. This one is directed by Kathy Yan, stars Margot Robbie, Rosie Perez, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Journey Smollett, Ewan McGregor, Chris Messina, Ali Wong. And the synopsis is, after splitting with the Joker, Harley Quinn joins superheroines Black Canary, Huntress, and Renee Montoya to save a young girl from an evil crime lord. This one made $205 million against a budget of around $90, so not really a hit. I do really appreciate that it's R-rated. I love that about it. This movie, I'll say, go ahead and say it, I absolutely love it. I think, as I've said before on the show many times, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is perfect. I love Margot Robbie. She's one of my favorite actors working today, and I think with the success of Barbie, she's, really becoming one of the biggest actors in the world. But she is amazing as Harley Quinn. I love how grounded this movie is. It's not some huge special effects driven film. It's not low budget, but for, I guess, the kind of movie is, it's lower budget. The world feels grounded. The villain is grounded. It's not a lot of supernatural stuff going on. It's just basically, hey, a group of people are going to try and take down a crime lord, but it's set within DC, which is awesome. It's funny. I love the characters. It looks amazing. I think the costume and production design is amazing. I think how they design Harley Quinn is just iconic in this, and it's much better than it was in David Ayer's Suicide Squad. And I think they have continued to succeed with those new designs in these more recent films. But Ewan McGregor's and Chris Messina's relationship in this is awesome. Ewan McGregor's perfect villain, and Chris Messina's like this weird, creepy, henchman. And I think some people were let down by this movie. Maybe that's because it wasn't big enough. It wasn't epic enough. I'm not sure exactly, but I'll go on record and say, I think, and I know some of it deals with competition and what people, what I guess the average audience is going to want. But I think if DC were to stick to movies like this or even movies like Joker that are lower budget, They're more grounded and in a more real world. They're R-rated, they're dark, they're character-driven, not special effects and plot-driven. I think that they could really set themselves apart, which I think they kind of did with the Batman. Obviously, that's a bigger budget movie, but like the Batman is a perfect example of how they should go about making DC movies. Not, Shazam, not like Shazam or Aquaman. Not that some of those movies are bad inherently, but they feel like they're just trying to be like Marvel, not be like DC, make their own thing. And so I think that's why this movie works so well for me, is it just feels very different. And it's fun. It's creepy. It's got some dark moments, and the Harley Quinn character being in the lead is awesome. It's refreshing, and the writing for her is great. I couldn't say enough about it. Very good soundtrack as well, and score. And yeah, I wish that this had done better, so they would have maybe made more Harley Quinn stuff than they already have. Because I know that there was a Gotham City Sirens movie planned. Maybe that's happening still. I hope it does. But I'm hoping that they continue to make Harley Quinn-led DC movies, because I think that's a very strong point for them that Marvel does not have anywhere close to a character like that. So great movie. If you don't love it as much as I do, I guess I can understand. I know some people who don't, but for what it is and how it feels, just very different from what DC had done up until that point, and compared to what Marvel does, I love it. And I think just as a movie, it's very, very well done across the board. So that's a 5 for me. Heavy 5. All right, let's move on to Wonder Woman 1984. Came out in 2020, and it came out when COVID was hitting. So I think that it definitely took a little bit of a hit financially for that. But it's directed by Patty Jenkins, stars Gal Gadot, Chris Pine, Kristen Wiig, Pedro Pascal, Robin Wright, Connie Nielsen. That's about it for big names. And the synopsis is: Diana must contend with a work colleague and with a businessman whose desire for extreme wealth sends the world down a path of destruction after an ancient artifact that grants wishes goes missing. This one made $169 million against a budget of $200. So again, not a hit financially, which is something that DC has really been struggling with. And some of that did have to do with COVID, because I remember I didn't see this in theaters. I saw it at home after it premiered on HBO Max. So, I don't fault the movie totally for flopping, but, just, wrong time, wrong place, unfortunately. But this is another movie. I don't think it's as good as Birds of Prey. I think it's a little underrated. Maybe that's another hot take, because I know when I reviewed it originally, my co-host didn't like it, and a lot of people didn't really like it. I think it's awesome. I think there are flaws to it, and it's not perfect for sure. Gal Gadot, fantastic as Wonder Woman. The look of the movie is amazing. The costumes, the special effects, the design, the colors, all that stuff I love. I love the tone of the movie. Gal Gadot and Chris Pine together is great. Kristen Wiig, I think, she's a pretty interesting choice for the villain. I think she's awesome in it. She does kind of call back to like Jamie Foxx in Amazing Spider-Man 2, where there's this like obsession and wanting to be like them, and then they get rejected and, so on and so forth. But which I understand that. That's one maybe drawback for some people, but the character itself, awesome. I like the look of the character when she becomes Cheetah. Hans Zimmer's score, he came back to do this one, and it's awesome. I love it. And there's just something about Wonder Woman where even, comparing it to Birds of Prey, like, Harley Quinn is this very anarchistic, rebellious kind of teenage character, where she's this very, righteous, elegant leader. And I think that both characters are done incredibly well, and being in the same kind of world is even better, because I think it just shows the variety and the diversity of that world, and both work for me really well. Like, I love watching Harley Quinn just cause destruction and chaos, but I also love Wonder Woman standing up for what's right and having that kind heart. Gal Gadot, perfect poise and persona of Wonder Woman. I think, she's great in that role, and I feel like it's going to be hard to recast her if they ever do. Pedro Pascal, overall, I don't love Pedro Pascal. I've never seen him give a bad performance. I think he's pretty good in this. He's pretty goofy and fun and cartoony, but not really in a bad way, in my opinion. But then, of course, there is he's a villain, and then Cheetah's a villain. And so there is that bouncing back and forth that maybe things get a little messy. It's a little long, but overall, I don't really understand the hate against this movie when it really does not feel that different from a lot of Marvel movies that get extreme love. I really don't understand why this movie and some of the other DC ones are like, this is trash. This is terrible. This, it's one of the worst, DC movies yet. Like, I don't really understand that extreme hate when watching Wonder Woman 1984 and then watching some of the, Thor, the Captain America, the Ant-Man, kind of movies. I feel like, okay, what's the big difference here? To me, there's not much. Yes, Marvel does have some great movies that I wouldn't compare like this one to, but no matter what, I think the movie is great. It's really entertaining. It's fun. It's got some weird moments, and I love Wonder Woman bouncing off of Cheetah, and Kristen Wiig's performance is great as well. So yeah, I think it's another one that's underrated. Maybe that pisses some people off, or maybe that confuses some people, but I don't know. I can't help it. I just sit down and watch it, and both ones I've really, really enjoyed. So that one is a heavy 4 for me. All right, let's get to Zack Snyder's Justice League. This one came out in 2021, of course, directed by Zack Snyder. Stars Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Amy Adams, Ray Fisher, Jason Momoa, Ezra Miller, Willem Dafoe, Jesse Eisenberg, Jeremy Irons, Diane Lane, Connie Nielsen, J.K. Simmons, Amber Heard, Jared Leto. The list goes on and on and on. And the synopsis is: determined to ensure that Superman's ultimate sacrifice wasn't in vain, Bruce Wayne recruits a team of metahumans to protect the world from an approaching threat of catastrophic proportions. So this one had a budget of $70 million, but it was released through HBO, so there wasn't really a box office for it. And it is 242 minutes long, so it's pretty darn long. And this, of course, is the director's cut of Justice League after the initial one was released back in 2016, I believe it was. And you can check out that review on the first DC Extended Universe show. But that one, maybe it still is, probably is my least favorite DC movie of the Extended Universe films. Like, it was awful. Joss Whedon came in and I don't know if it was Zack Snyder's fault with Joss Whedon coming in and changing things, but I think everyone agreed it was a mess. It was terrible. It didn't look good. It was poorly put together, just absolute disaster. Like, that's when I would say, yes, that was a disaster for sure. But this one, I've seen it twice now. I do think it is a pretty big improvement. It is long. Like, it's not one I can't really sit down and watch it all in one sitting typically. Like, typically I have to maybe take a little break halfway in between, because it is, about 4 hours. I do love that they allowed him to make a 4-hour superhero film. You don't really get that. I mean, there's Avengers Endgame, things like that. They're about 3, but getting to make a 3.5, 4-hour comic book movie is pretty awesome. Even if it's not amazing, it's still pretty cool and ambitious. And I love seeing a movie on that scale set in DC. Overall, I mean, the direction is better. It flows better. It looks better. I feel like the characters are more rounded. Obviously, a lot of it comes with runtime and more storylines. And as for the Justice League setup, I love Ben Affleck as Batman. I love Gal Gadot, as I said. Henry Cavill is great. Jason Momoa has grown on me. I like him. I don't love Ezra Miller, and we'll get to that with The Flash. But overall, I like the world, the take on the Justice League, and I love Jared Leto's Joker. I love his scene towards the end. I think he's awesome in it, and I wish he would be in it more. I know that maybe that's a hot take, but I love Jared Leto as Joker. I love the look of the character, his performance, and so I wish that he was in it more, and I hope that they do more movies with him. I don't know if that's going to happen. I doubt it, but I wish they would. If you didn't like the original Justice League, I would give this one a shot, but I would just be aware, it is about 4 hours long. So, find the best way for you to watch it, get through it, because it is worth watching, I think, just on its scale alone. It may not be a masterpiece still, but it's still pretty good. Has some really intense action sequences. Special effects look great. I think the colors, it's pretty a dark movie. I love R-rated superhero films like this and, Watchmen, and other films in that same realm. But yeah, there's still things that are a little goofy, a little too Zack Snyder-y. I still don't love Darkseid as a villain, nor the look of the character. Just a little too gross looking, but not really gross in a creepy way. Just I don't think the design is great. Zack Snyder, I feel like he sometimes struggles with villains. It can go way, way too comic booky, but he just doesn't get it right, or he can do it really well. Like someone like Michael Shannon in Man of Steel is great. So that's would be my least favorite. I think there's nothing better for me than a great DC villain. Like Dark Knight trilogy, like Joker or Bane, the Riddler and the Batman, or, Joker and Suicide Squad and all that. So I think the villain is an issue, but overall, a great epic movie, worth watching. I would like to see more movies like this done either as a director's cut or just released theatrically in, whatever way would make the most sense. But I love that this movie exists, because I think most people thought that we were not going to get, a 4-hour cut of Justice League after the disaster of the first one. So yeah, that one is a 4 out of 5, heavy 4. All right, well, let's get to The Suicide Squad, which also came out in 2021, also during COVID, and it's written and directed by James Gunn. Stars Margot Robbie, John Cena, Idris Elba, Joel Kinnaman, Michael Rooker, Viola Davis, Nathan Fillion, Jai Courtney, Pete Davidson, Sean Gunn. And the synopsis is supervillains Harley Quinn, Bloodsport, Peacemaker, and a collection of nutty cons at Belle Reve Prison join the super secret, super shady Task Force X as they are dropped off at the remote, enemy-infused island of Carto Maltese. So the Suicide Squad made $168 million against the budget of $185. So again, not a success financially for DC. It was hit by COVID for sure, so I'm sure it would have made a lot more if it had been released. Just there have been more people going to the theaters, but is what it is. So yeah, not a great success financially. Pretty well received critically though. One of the better ones recently for them. The first Suicide Squad was a pretty big hit financially. This one I saw at home because it was another one that was released, I believe released either on HBO Max or just as a at-home rental. And so I did not see this in theaters as well. Overall, as I talked about on the first DC Extended Universe show, I don't hate the first Suicide Squad. It is very flawed. I appreciate the weirdness of it. I love Jared Leto, Margot Robbie. I don't mind the look of the design of the world. I would really like to see a David Ayers director's cut of Suicide Squad, considering that had a bit of a Justice League disaster behind it. This one, James Gunn, he did Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, and he also went on to do the Peacemaker show, which I also want to do a bonus show on as well coming up, so stay tuned for that. This one, I like it more than the first one. I think it's just better put together, better written, it looks better, the story's better. There's something about James Gunn where, this one is R-rated as well, which, James Gunn is known for doing some horror, like indie horror, like body horror, that kind of thing, which he definitely brings out in this as well as the Peacemaker. Just weird, creepy designs, weird monsters and creatures, and just a lot of very grotesque horror images, which, for the most part, I love. And there's a little bit of that in Guardians as well. There's just something about sometimes his writing becomes a little tiresome. Some of the humor really works, or it just doesn't at all. And it's just tiring. It's not funny. It's stupid. And so in that way, the movie feels a little inconsistent. I think Margot Robbie is just like the shining light of this movie and really of all the DC movies. Whenever she's on screen, I'm immediately hooked. Her performance is fantastic. The design of the character is great. I like Idris Elba as well. I miss having Will Smith there as Deadshot. John Cena is pretty fun as Peacemaker. Really, the whole cast is pretty solid. I do find that the plot is a little underwhelming. I feel like sometimes I just get a little bored. Not to say that the first Suicide Squad had a better plot, but for what this movie is, I feel like it kind of wears out its welcome a little bit. And I feel like the third act just becomes an obligatory special effects epic action sequence. And it's okay. It's not terrible. It's just, wasn't really that impressed by the end. And I just wanted to spend more time, like quiet moments with those characters, getting to know each other, and especially Harley Quinn. And so I feel like the movie is a success. It's a better than the first one, and it sets the world up for better Suicide Squad movies in the future. I would happily watch another one of these. I just didn't love it as much as some people do. I don't know if some of that love was because, the first one was so bad, now this one is great, so it's a fantastic movie. I don't know if I really see it that way. I think it's solid, but I think Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 1984, and Zack Snyder's Justice League are all better than this. So yeah, I love Sylvester Stallone, as the Shark. He's awesome. Just the gore in the movie is refreshing in terms of, comic book films, and James Gunn does that very well. The weird little like rodent varmint character at the beginning is pretty hilarious. It's just those weird little James Gunn characters that he can inject and really add something. So I appreciate that a lot. Very good action sequences, very well choreographed, especially with Harley Quinn. Overall, I like it. Don't love it. That's a 3.5 out of 5. All right, let's get to Black Adam, which came out in 2022, directed by Jaume Collet-Serra. Sorry if I butchered that name. Stars Dwayne Johnson, Aldous Hodge, Pierce Brosnan, Noah Centineo, Sarah Shahi. Not a lot of big names in the movie. The synopsis is nearly 5,000 years after he was bestowed with the almighty powers of the Egyptian gods and imprisoned just as quickly, Black Adam is freed from his early tomb, ready to unleash his unique form of justice on the modern world. And this one made $393 million against a budget of around $230, $240. So, I wouldn't really call it a hit. I think it was considered to be, underwhelming financially. All right reviews, but I think Warner Brothers and Dwayne Johnson had a little bit of a spat about the movie and, why the movie may have flopped and, all that. But so this movie, I knew nothing about Black Adam when I heard about it. I didn't know anything about the character. Didn't have all that much interest in seeing it, to be honest. I like The Rock to a certain degree. I don't love him, but I do like him. And the director, he's directed The Shallows, Jungle Cruise, The Commuter, Nonstop. So, a decent amount of films. And he has a very fun, almost self-aware B-movie feel to his direction. Like he can just make these simple stories, simple action movies, and turn it into something that feels pretty accessible, pretty fun, and, kind of over the top and goofy, but not really in a bad way most of the time. It was an interesting choice for him to direct it. I don't know if he would have been my choice, but he did just direct Jungle Cruise with Dwayne Johnson as well. The movie, I actually thought I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. I'd say I prefer it over The Suicide Squad, even though this one is more of a special effects driven movie than The Suicide Squad is. I think it's done better than a lot of others like it. It's much better than Shazam and Aquaman, I think. This is probably, not that it's a high bar, this is probably Dwayne Johnson's best performance. I feel like there's some nuance there. There's a lot of, I feel like, emotion in his face, and whereas a lot of time he's very wooden. Whereas I feel like in this, he's pretty decent. I think he really makes that character what it is. I love the look of the character. I hate that Shazam basically looks exactly like Black Adam's character, just a different color of outfit. I hate that. But I think in this movie, I love the costume. I love the world. I love the ancient origin of the character, and then that coming to modern day. I love the Middle Eastern setting. The villain, this is, one where it feels more almost like a Marvel villain. It's not, not terrible, not amazing, but, does the job, I think. But that is another weak point is DC typically does better with villains when they're more grounded, like a Joker kind of character, as opposed to the one in Black Adam. Because in this, there are these Justice League members that it's almost like a B grade Justice League, not Batman or Wonder Woman. It's these supporting characters, I guess you can call them, or players. And they're not that great. I don't think they're very interesting. They're not very entertaining. They feel much more like Marvel and not really in a good way. So don't love the villain or villains in the movie, but Dwayne Johnson really carries it. I think the action and the special effects are solid. It looks good. It's designed well. It's shot well. I think for the most part, pretty entertaining, not overly long. As most of these movies do, they drag a little bit at the end for me just because of it's just the obligatory action sequence, climax, but much better than I thought it would be. It's not going to be on my best of list or anything like that, but for what it is, and maybe it's because I had a low bar, I do enjoy it a fair bit. It's worth checking out as well. If you like any kind of movie like this, or you were skeptical on it, I would check it out for sure. I would be okay if they make another one because, Dwayne Johnson held it, as I said, and I would be okay with seeing him in more DC films, So that one is a light 4 out of 5. So again, I liked it. All right, 2 more here. Let's get to Shazam! Fury of the Gods. So this one came out in 2023, this year, directed by David F. Sandberg, stars Zachary Levi, Asher Angel, Jack Dylan Grazer, Adam Brody, Rachel Zegler. That's about it. And the synopsis is, when a vengeful trio of ancient gods arrives on Earth in search of the magic stolen from them long ago, Shazam and his allies get thrust into a battle for their superpowers, their lives, and the fate of the world. Oh, and Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren as well. Forgot those. And Digimon Hansu. That's another good one. So this one made $133 million against a budget of $125. So yet again, hey, I mean, it's sad to say, just another financial flop. There's not one financial success of any of these movies. Black Adam would probably be the best. But yeah, another flop. Very bad reviews for this one. Pretty trashed across the board. I only saw this one about a week ago for the first time. When I saw the first Shazam, even by the trailer, I was like, I'm not interested in this. I don't know why exactly, but there's just nothing appealing about this character. It feels like every other kind of smart talking, carefree comic book character in Marvel that we've seen a million times. The first one was okay. I think I gave it maybe a 3, maybe 2.5 out of 5. And you can check out that review on the first bonus episode on DC films. But this one is even worse. I could barely get through this. It's just, I cannot stand Zachary Levi, whichever one, sorry. Can't stand him. I don't know why it is. Maybe it's partly the writing, the tone of the movie, but I just find him to be so obnoxious, not funny. I don't care about his character. I hate that they all look the same. They're just different colors of the design of the costume. Don't like that. It's an uninspired uniform as well. I think the overall cast is good. Like, Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu as the villains are good. Rachel Zegler from West Side Story is good. It's just so I feel like it can never figure out what it really wants to be. Can't figure out a voice, an identity. It's boring. It's uninspired. It looks terrible. Too many villains, not done in a careful way. Pretty bad. And I would put this right around maybe the first Justice League in terms of quality, by far my least favorite. And I hope that they just stop after this. I'm hoping James Gunn, since he's taken over DC, I'm hoping he's like, we're done with Shazam, especially considering how poorly it did, both critically and financially. So, I know there are some people who like Shazam, but I just, for whatever reason, I cannot get into it. I don't like him. I try every time I watch it, and I'm completely uninterested in him, just very indifferent. And I feel like he's just a character that doesn't really fit in the DC extended universe. I just don't really feel like there's a place for him really that makes sense, or that people would really care about. And I think having his own movie is even worse. If he was, maybe a supporting character in one of the other movies, that's a little different. But as him as the lead, I think it's a big mistake. There's just not enough there to carry it. So that one is a 2 out of 5. So barely a 2 out of 5. Could easily be a 1.5 even. Just not good. All right, last movie. Let's get on to The Flash. So this one came out just a few months ago, 2023. And it's directed by Andy Muschietti, who also did the It films, Stephen King It films. Stars Ezra Miller, Sasha Calle, Michael Shannon, Ron Livingston, Michael Keaton, Kiersey Clemens, Maribel Verdú. And the synopsis is: Barry Allen uses his super speed to change the past, but his attempt to save his family creates a world without superheroes, forcing him to race for his life in order to save the future. And you guessed it, it flopped at the box office, made $268 million against a budget of around $210. So a pretty bad hit, mixed reviews. But biggest thing of all, just Warner Brothers has just lost a ton of money from these DC movies, which is a shame because I don't think that most of them are deserving of that. So I don't like Ezra Miller. Obviously, he has a lot of things in his personal life that I've made people not like him even more. I think the only performance I've liked of his is Perks of Being a Wallflower. And I think for the most part, I can't stand him in Fantastic Beasts. For the most part, I don't like him in these movies as the Flash. I think he's just obnoxious and not a very good actor overall. I really like Andy Muschietti. I love the It films, both parts 1 and 2. So I was happy he was doing this. Overall, maybe another big hot take. I like the movie. I don't think it's terrible. I think there are some bad moments, some bad sequences, but I like the movie overall. I think the movie is ambitious in a lot of ways. I thought I would hate the Michael Keaton introduction or injection into the movie. I think it works really well, and it's done in a pretty clever way. I love the introduction of Supergirl. I think she's awesome, and the performance and the look of the character is great. Michael Shannon is back as General Zod. He's amazing. I think Michael Shannon is such an underrated actor. The movie, I think the worst thing about the movie is whenever the Flash is running. That weird thing with his arms where he's just flailing them around as he's running, and it's the slow-mo. It looks terrible. I don't know why they thought that looked good. I think you could do that so much better. I understand it might be difficult to figure out the physicality of that, but they did not do it well in this movie. Every time that happens, it looks awful. And when he's in the multi-world center of where he could go into the different worlds, and he's basically just running in place, looking around. Obviously, it's all green screen around him. It looks awful and just goofy. But I think his performance in this, maybe it has to do with the writing. I don't know, but I think he is fairly funny in this. And maybe that's because he's bouncing off of other characters who are great, like Supergirl and Batman. I think so. I think this is probably his best performance. Other than that, though, I think the movie, there are some really awesome looking sequences. I think the main fight with General Zod back in the Man of Steel period is great. I think the scene where they break Supergirl out is awesome, and the look of all of that is great. The Bat Cave, when he has the alternate version of him, or the Flash from another time period, is really funny. And I think the sequences of him running through the streets and all that stuff is really funny. And I think Andy Muschietti is a very funny director. I think he has very good humor. And so I think he brings that to the movie. So overall, I do like the movie. It is too long. And I think the third act it leaves you with a bit of a bad taste in your mouth because it's just all special effects and a lot of him just running around, flailing his arms and all that. But I think the Flash character is interesting. There are interesting parts to it. And I think how his arc in the movie with wanting to save his mother it works emotionally for me. It did. It's not some groundbreaking thing, but I think it definitely got me to care, especially that final moment at the end. I think with him really worked for me. So all that stuff is great. Ron Livingston is very funny. Michael Keaton, of course, is great as Batman. I like the look of the Flash suit as well. So all that stuff works. Some people trash this movie. I think that's maybe it's because of those really bad sequences. I'd say the worst thing about the movie is it's just inconsistent. But at the same time, I think it's ambitious. And I'd rather watch a flawed movie like this that's ambitious and is just trying things than a lot of the Marvel films that are just cookie cutter, we'll get the job done so we don't get crapped on, So not an amazing movie, but I like it more than a lot of other people seem to. I will watch it again. Maybe it'll go up. Maybe it'll go down. And I'm curious to see what they do with The Flash after this, especially with all of Ezra Miller's controversies in his personal life, but we'll see. So that one, would be 4 out of 5. So I like it, I like it. All right. Well, that is about it. As I was saying earlier in the show, I'm going to be doing a lot of DC bonus shows in the future, in the next month or two, hopefully. I want to do one on the Dark Knight trilogy and Matt Reeves is the Batman. I want to do one on DC standalone films like Joker, Watchmen, Constantine, Jonah Hex, the Harley Quinn animated show, The Peacemaker, Batman animated films. I want to try and do as much as I can. So keep an eye out for all of that. Subscribe to our Bandcamp page if you have not already, and to our main feed available wherever you listen to podcasts. Send us any suggestions on social media at FilmBuds for, bonus show ideas, things we can do better, do less of, do more of, all that stuff. Yeah. Well, thank you as always for listening, for donating. If you did, please subscribe and rate the show if you've not yet. And hope you enjoyed it half as much as I did, and see you next time.